those of you who don't know, this is Fancy. Fancy, this is everyone. And Fancy came from Memphis, and I brought her home on this trip over there. So the way I actually ended up going to Memphis is because it is a scorcher out here, I'll tell you that much right now. Holy cow, what was I thinking? Nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. So the first story I wanted to tell you was about Fancy and how she came to be in my care. The way that the Memphis, Tennessee trip started was that back when I was 6 years old, my grandmother sent me a letter, and she said, "I'm your grandmother, and we love you, and we can't see you right now, but we'll be together soon." And she included some photos, and I kept those photos, and I kept the envelope. And I sent her back a letter saying, "Hello, grandmother, I love you. I hope you send me a present for my birthday. Okay, bye." And then she kept that letter too. So fast forward 23 years, and when I went to go visit my mom for the first time in a while, I ended up keeping the envelope, and I went to the street that the envelope came from. I didn't know the actual numbers, but because like the envelope had been ripped a little bit, so I couldn't find the actual house. But I was trying to find my grandparents and see if they remembered me or would want to meet me. So I went to the street, and I couldn't find a mailbox that had their name on it or anything, and I was just like, you know what? Take it to Facebook, let's see what happens. I searched the Facebook names, and my grandmother had different accounts, and I didn't know which one was active or which one was like a really her, because there were two different accounts. So I sent a friend request to one, and I just hoped for the best. Time passed, she didn't respond to the friend request, and my journey, I was just focused on the biological parents mostly, and if I heard from extended family, that would be cool. If I didn't, that would be cool. So fast forward 2 years later, into this spring, and grandmother approves a friend request finally, and I message her immediately, and I'm saying, "Hey, can I talk to you? I think we're related." Long story short, she never forgot about me, and she was amazed that I kept the envelope and I kept the pictures. We need to stay in touch. So I was like, okay, maybe at the end of this summer, I can fly over there and see you guys and meet you for the first time ever, and we'll do it that way. And as I was in California and as I was traveling to Alaska, she had reached out to me, and she was wondering if I can do the trip sooner rather than later. And I was like, okay, if I could take enough time off work, then I can make this happen. So as soon as I got back from California and hanging out with Brandon and dropping off my footage, I purchased my ticket to Tennessee, and I went over there and met with everybody, and it was a really great trip, and it was really just unreal, because it was not only family, but it was family that had accepted me and embraced me, and never forgot about me. And they reminded me that they tried to get custody of me, and they tried to they tried to keep me a part of the unit, but then it was reiterated to me time and time again, now that we found you, we're not going to lose you again. We won't lose you again. And that made me feel really good. And it was especially like, it was a really big confidence boost when you tell family about the project that I'm working on and tracking down my biological parents and going from there, and hearing uncles say, "Tell your story, nephew. You've got this. Don't let anybody tell you how to, tell your story. But keep going and don't quit." And that felt really good. Just that kind of solidarity of just saying, okay, I'm not alone in this journey, and I have family that's also encouraging me to wrap this up too. So that felt good. But while I was visiting with family, there was this dog. I'm over here chilling with biological family after all this time and like filling in the missing pieces of my story and my life and like what happened. And it's been all this time in Alaska that you just get really focused on Alaska, and just like whatever's directly in front of you is just like the circumstances. And come to find out, like, you get multiple stories from this family just being like, well, we tried to get custody of you, and we wanted to adopt you first, and there's all this red tape about getting awarded the state of Alaska over to Tennessee. And it's just kind of like, it feels good knowing that I had family that was fighting for me the whole time, and just how the cards played out, it just wasn't in the cards. It's still good to connect with them now, where I'm just like, I feel like that whole like Black Panther thing of just like, they wanted to bring me home, they just couldn't. But and as soon as this dog like came up to me, I was just like, oh, okay, you're friendly, what's going on? And then grandmother's like, yeah, that's Fancy, that's your Uncle D's dog. So when my grandmother had sent me these photos over 20 years ago, she had included a picture of her, a picture of my grandfather, and a picture of her son, Demetrius, aka Uncle D. And sadly, this past December, Uncle D passed away from cancer, and I was never able to meet him. So then going over to this trip to Tennessee, then grandmother says, that was your Uncle D's dog, and she's 11 months old, and we just ended up keeping her just because we didn't know what to do with her after he had passed. You can take her if you want. And I was like, oh, that's really kind of you. Maybe I will, I don't know. And as the trip progressed, this dog and I just kept getting this bond of just being like, hey, out of the 6 dogs that are running around this house, this one just like kind of scopes me out and wants to be friends. And I was like, yeah, you can be my friend for sure. So then I was like, you know what? I feel good about this. I'm gonna call the roommates right now. I'm gonna see what's going on, because it would be awkward if I just got off the plane, had a dog, and was just like, by the way, I did a thing. Hope you're cool with it. So I called the roommates ahead of time and I said, hey, there's this dog over here that belonged to my uncle. Would I be able to bring him back? And she's already potty trained. Everything's cool. She's a really chill dog. She's super small, so she can fit in small places. And it's not like I'm bringing home a Great Dane or anything crazy. It's just a puppy. And then my cousin was like, okay, let me talk to my wife, see what happens. And then I didn't hear anything for a couple hours. And then the wife texts me and she's like, so tell me about our new roommate. And I was like, it's happening. This is happening. Yes. Okay. All right. Her name's Fancy. She's 11 months old. She's super, super cute. And I just love her. And I really hope you're cool with it, because I'm bringing her whatever you say. Like, I hope you're cool with it because I'm bringing her home regardless. So she was cool with it. And I was like, all right, this is happening. I'm doing this. So then after I got confirmation from them, then I was doing other things in Memphis, and I was checking stuff out, and I was hanging out with family, and we were cruising around, and everything was cool. And then closer to when I was supposed to fly out, then I was like, yeah, grandmother, I think I'm gonna need a carrier for her. And then she's like, for who? I was like, for Fancy. I think I'm gonna take you up on that offer. I talked to the roommates, they're cool with it, and I think I'm gonna have a piece of home to go back with me. Grandmother comes back and she says, oh, you were serious? Of course I'm serious. There's a dog on the line here. Yes, I was serious. That's why I called ahead and I was like, we can do this. And she's like, well, okay. But you're gonna need a medical release from the doctor. And maybe we might just have to send her to you later. If there's one thing that you need to know about me, it's that I don't like to leave things halfway done. Let's just wrap it up and make sure that this is completely finished with, just so we can say we got it over the finish line. So then I'm over here doing my due diligence where I'm like, okay, I'm checking the boxes, we're good to go, about to fly out, coming home with a souvenir, a fancy souvenir. Hey girl, what are you doing? So I'm ready to go. I'm ready for this to happen, and this is happening. So then I was like, a medical release? She's a puppy. She's already had all of her shots. If I was driving across country, which I have done many times, then there would be no issue here. Okay, we're going to make this happen. And she's like, and it might cost $125 to buy her a ticket for herself. I thought it was weird, but airlines charge $125 to bring the pet on board. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get some doctor medical release forms. Maybe I'll sign off on it myself. I'm going to risk it. We've come too far. Things have already been set in motion. Roommates are expecting me to come home with a dog. I do not want to fail this mission. I'm coming home with a dog. You said it was okay. Let's do this. She's like, well, how are you going to do it? And I was like, well, just walk through security and have grandfather waiting in the parking lot. And if security says something and there's some kind of hang up, then I can just run the dog back out. And then my uncle was in there too, and he's like, sounds like a good plan. And I was like, it is a good plan because it's gonna work. So I'm gonna go through security, granddad's gonna stay outside, and if there's anything that like causes a hiccup or something, then we'll just be like, you know what, at least we tried, and maybe I'll have to like ship her out later. I just didn't want to leave Tennessee without a dog that I was like getting really like connected to, and then just be like, well, I almost brought a dog home, but then it didn't work out. I was like, no, I'm gonna try this out. We find a kennel, and on the day that I'm flying out, granddad waits out front, and I start going through TSA, and I'm just like, everything's gonna be okay. I don't think they're gonna check for a dog's ticket, and if they are gonna check, then I'm just gonna be like, you're not gonna say no to this face. Like, come on, she's too adorable to say no to. So I make it through TSA, and I'm used to flying by myself, so I take out my laptop, and I take out my hard drive, and I take out my camera, I take off my shoes, I take off my hoodie, and I set it up on the conveyor belt, and I don't want to call any attention to myself because I have a dog that doesn't have a doggy boarding pass, so I'm just like, okay, let's just do it how we always do it. Let's get through here, set the kennel up on the conveyor belt, let me walk through the little security scanner with my hands up. Let's do this. All of a sudden, TSA loses their minds. Hey, who put a dog on the conveyor belt x-ray machine? Whose dog is this that went through the x-ray machine? I have to pipe up and be like, that's my dog. TSA comes back and they're like, you can't put your dog on the x-ray machine. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was being like super, super safe. And I was like, if she's strong enough to get x-rayed and she's safe, then she's safe enough to be on the plane. Like, I didn't know. I've never flown with an animal before. They're like, you need to take your dog out of the kennel. You need to walk through the metal detector. You can't put her through the x-ray machine. I was like, oh, okay. I'll do that then. So I went back, I walked through. She was the best well-behaved girl ever. And I put her back in the kennel, and we got on the plane. And then she flew from Memphis all the way back over, and she didn't go to the bathroom one time. I offered her some water in Chicago, and she didn't want it, but she still stayed in the kennel, and she was so good. She likes puppuccinos, and she's super cool. So that's how I got Fancy.
Hey, bruh, let me kick it to you right quick.
So I'm not exactly supposed to have Fancy on this plane, so then I was like, I'm not trying to call any attention to myself. So I got up to security, and then I was like, yep, here's my boarding pass, sweet, have a good day. Walked up through took my laptop out, took my hard drive out, and I didn't want to call any attention to myself. So I was just like, yeah, go ahead and send Fancy through in this carrier. And then TSA flipped shit, and they were like, who just sent their dog through this x-ray machine? And I was like, that's my dog. And they were like, your dog can't go through the x-ray machine, sir. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you want me to do? And they were like, you need to take it out of the carrier and walk it through the metal detector. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't trying to like, It all worked out.